I'm speaking to?
Steve Hornsby.
Right. What are you going to tell me about carburettors, Steve?
I'm going to give you a crash course on DC4 carburettor. Okay, the crash course is, it's a carburettor of 3 parts. It's a carburettor body, it's the fuel pressure and fuel supply system, and the fuel output part. It's all 3 separate items. The fuel goes in here and fills up this chamber, and there's a poppet valve in here connected to 2 sets of diaphragms via rod. These diaphragms are operated, and the rod moves in and out, by the amount of airflow that goes down here and into these tubes. So the beauty of this carburettor is that the fuel is not mixed in the carburettor, and they did this to avoid icing in flight because it's a known fault. If you mix fuel and air and evaporate fuel, then it reduces the temperature, and then the carburettor ices up because it freezes. Well, this carburettor doesn't do that. It does have anti-icing just in case of rain, but we don't use it. So if you look in here, you see there's a little slot inside here. That little slot there where my fingernail is, and the ram air going down here sucks on that slot, and it vacuums these tubes, and that moves in this side, this diaphragm that way. And in this side it moves it this way, and the ram air that goes into here, these little tubes, these ram air tubes, that goes on this side and pushes the diaphragm. So there's a balancing act between these tubes and this suction on this bar. So when you've got lots of ram air and lots of suction and lots of ram air and pressure here, it opens the fuel valve because the engine's dragging lots and lots of fuel down there, lots of air. So this carburettor only operates when the airflow is going. As soon as you shut the butterflies like that, the ram air stops, the diaphragms will go back to their 0 position, and this valve will close. Okay, and that's basically how it works. The fuel goes in here, it gets metered by the movement and the ram air and the pressure, opening the fuel valve, and then it feeds down this gallery, and it comes into here, and this is where the pilots select. That's idle shut off, that's cruise, which is a lean mixture because you're not climbing, and that's fully rich for when you're taking off or climbing or accelerating. And that there is a crash course in how this carburettor works, and it's been around since 1945, and it works perfectly.
Okay, the big question we want to know is, what's the mechanics of a flame out that we saw? What happens here to cause that?
So what's happening there is the fact that the amount of fuel coming out of here is being far too much for the engine to accept, and it wets the plugs and gets rid of the sparks basically. So then this goes into the plenum chamber, which is where the turbocharger is, and then it blows through the turbocharger and comes into a gallery which is here in front of this carburettor, and that gallery feeds all the cylinders. So if underneath there's these primer jets, and when you start the aircraft, the only fuel coming through is through these primer jets, and if you prime it too much because you're only doing it on trial and error, then what happens is that it will flood, and then it comes out, and then you see it coming out the bottom. That's when the plenum chamber where the turbocharger is that feeds the engine is flooded. So when you see fuel coming out, you've gone too far. But you never know what's going on. You can't see from the cockpit number 1 or number 4. You can only see the prop going around.
So what catches it on fire?
It's just a backfire or a bad fire, or rich fuel burns very slowly. So if the exhaust valve's open, you can get rich fuel coming out, which does actually catch fire. It's not a problem with radial engines. If you get a backfire through the carburettor, it comes out the front. All you do is leave the throttle open and suck it all back into the engine, and it disappears.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful piece of equipment. And this one was quite badly corroded, same as all the other ones that came off. And this is off of engine number 5, but it's not. It's got quite severe corrosion inside here. So this one's not been rebuilt, so we kept it as a training aid.
For when you get the museum?
For when we get people like yourself asking questions.
Yeah, great, thank you very much, Steve.
I hope that answers your question.
Lovely, thank you very much. Bless your heart, thank you.
You're welcome.